Have you ever pondered, were the events of the Exodus actual historic occurrences or simply metaphoric tales? This question has captivated the minds of historians, theologians, and seekers of truth alike for centuries. The Book of Exodus, revered as a cornerstone of religious doctrine, is also a rich tapestry of narratives that has left an indelible impact on our culture and history. The story begins in the land of Egypt, a mighty empire under the rule of an oppressive pharaoh. The Israelites, a people subjected to grueling servitude, yearn for freedom. This longing sets the stage for a series of extraordinary events that would forever change the course of their history and ours. But let's pause for a moment. Is this narrative purely a religious fable, or does it hold historical weight? The answer isn't as clear-cut as one might think. While some historians propose that the Exodus story is a metaphorical retelling of the Israelites' collective memory of their origins, others argue for its historical authenticity, citing archaeological evidence and ancient records. For theologians, the Exodus is more than a historical or metaphorical account. It is a divine narrative, a testament of God's covenant with his people, and a beacon of hope for the oppressed. It's a story that has resonated with countless generations, inspiring faith, courage, and a pursuit for justice. The cultural impact of the Exodus story is evident in art, literature, music, and film, transcending borders and uniting people in their shared human experience. It has inspired epic tales of freedom, sparked debates on human rights, and continues to shape our understanding of our past and our aspirations for the future. In the end, whether viewed as a historical event, a religious narrative, or a powerful cultural metaphor, the Exodus story is undeniably a fascinating enigma. It has shaped our collective consciousness and continues to intrigue us with its blend of faith, history, and myth. Delve deeper with us as we journey through the time of pharaohs, plagues, and a people's quest for freedom. Our story begins with a baby, Moses, hidden away in a basket on the Nile River. Born into a Hebrew slave family, Moses' life takes a dramatic turn when he's discovered by Pharaoh's daughter. A compassionate woman, she rescues the infant from the reeds and raises him as her own, giving him all the privileges of Egyptian royalty. This twist of fate is laced with irony. Here's Moses, a Hebrew by birth, growing up in the heart of Egypt, learning their wisdom, their culture, their ways. He's being groomed for leadership, not among his own people, but among those who oppress them. Yet his Hebrew roots are not forgotten, secretly nurtured by his own mother serving as his nursemaid. A clever arrangement by Pharaoh's daughter herself. Little did the Pharaoh know this Hebrew child, raised as an Egyptian prince, would change the course of history. Fleeing from Egypt after a deadly confrontation, Moses encounters a sight that would forever alter his path. In the wilderness of Midian, he stumbles upon a bush ablaze, but curiously the flames do not consume it. This supernatural phenomenon heralds the divine presence of God himself. From the heart of the fire, God speaks to Moses, revealing himself as the God of his forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The divine mission is elucidated. Moses is to lead the Israelites out of the yoke of Egyptian slavery. It's an assignment daunting enough to shake anyone to their core, but Moses is not left to face it alone. God promises to be with him, to guide him, and to empower him. He bestows upon Moses a staff with supernatural powers, a tool of divine authority. Armed with divine authority, Moses returned to Egypt, setting the stage for a clash of wills. The stage was set for a confrontation that would echo through the ages, a battle between the will of a pharaoh and the mandate of the divine. Faced with Pharaoh's stubborn refusal, a series of divine punishments unfolded, each more devastating than the last. The first plague turned the waters of the Nile into blood, a state that lasted for 7 long, distressing days. This was more than a mere inconvenience. The Nile was the lifeblood of Egypt, its very heartbeat. Yet Pharaoh remained unmoved. Next came a plague of frogs, covering the land in a writhing, croaking blanket. Then lice infesting both man and beast, followed by swarms of flies that brought disease and discomfort in their wake. Despite these plagues, Pharaoh's heart remained as hard as stone. The 5th plague struck down livestock, an economic catastrophe that would have rippled through every level of Egyptian society. Then boils erupted on the skin of Egyptians, a painful and humiliating affliction, yet still Pharaoh's defiance held strong. The 7th plague brought hail, a weather phenomenon so foreign to Egypt it must have seemed like the world was ending. This was followed by locusts, which consumed whatever the hail had spared. Darkness then descended upon the land, an eerie, palpable darkness that lasted for 3 days. Yet Pharaoh's resolve did not falter. The 10th and final plague was the most devastating of all, the death of every firstborn Egyptian. A sorrowful wail echoed through the land as every household was touched by loss. It was a brutal, heart-wrenching blow, one that finally broke Pharaoh's stubborn defiance. This series of divine punishments, each escalating in severity, created a narrative of tension and devastation. They demonstrated the power of the divine, the futility of human arrogance, and the inevitable triumph of divine will over human obstinacy. The final plague, the death of every firstborn Egyptian, would prove to be the breaking point. This marked the end of Pharaoh's defiance and the beginning of a new chapter for the people of Israel, setting the stage for their exodus from Egypt. With the death of his own son, Pharaoh finally relented, allowing the Israelites to leave Egypt. The night was one of hurried preparations and hushed whispers as families gathered their belongings, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. This was it, the moment they had been praying for. The great exodus had begun. With the first light of dawn, they set off, an endless stream of men, women, and children, along with flocks of sheep, goats, and herds of cattle. A mighty multitude, they moved as one. A sea of humanity undulating through the desert, driven by an unquenchable thirst for freedom. Their journey led them to the shores of the Red Sea, a seemingly insurmountable obstacle. With the Pharaoh's chariots thundering behind them, they found themselves trapped. But this was a people guided by divine providence. Moses, their leader, raised his staff and the impossible happened. The sea parted, creating a pathway through the waters. With walls of water towering on either side, the Israelites marched across the seabed, their footsteps echoing in this miraculous corridor. The sight was awe-inspiring, a testament to the power of faith and the might of their God. Hot on their heels, the Pharaoh's army charged into the sea passage. But their pursuit was doomed from the start. As the last of the Israelites reached the opposite shore, the sea roared back to life, crashing down on the Egyptian soldiers, their screams lost in the tumultuous waters. The Israelites watched in stunned silence as the sea calmed, the last remnants of the Pharaoh's army disappearing beneath the waves. Their oppressors were vanquished, their chains of servitude broken. They were a free people. The Israelites were free at last, but their journey was far from over. At Mount Sinai, the Israelites would receive a new set of laws that would define their identity as a people. These laws, known as the Ten Commandments, would serve as a moral compass, a guiding light in the wilderness of their journey. The commandments delivered by God to Moses on 2 stone tablets were not just rules to follow, but fundamental principles to live by. They included edicts on worship, such as not having other gods before God, not making graven images for worship, and keeping the Sabbath day holy. They also covered interpersonal relations, including honoring one's parents, not committing murder, adultery, or theft, not bearing false witness against one's neighbor, and not coveting anything that belongs to one's neighbor. Each commandment carried profound significance. They were not merely prohibitions, but a framework for a just, compassionate, and orderly society. They provided a blueprint for a community built on mutual respect, integrity, and reverence for the divine. But the revelation at Mount Sinai was not just about the delivery of these commandments, it also signified the establishment of a new covenant, a sacred agreement between God and the Israelites. This covenant was a promise of protection and guidance from God in return for the Israelites' commitment to uphold His laws. It was a pact that would shape the destiny of the Israelites, marking them as a chosen people bound by divine law and divine love. This new covenant was not just a contract, it was a transformative moment in the history of the Israelites. It marked their transition from a group of liberated slaves to a nation under God with a unique identity and a divine mission. Thus, the Exodus story not only recounts a tale of liberation, but also of a people's transformation under divine guidance. The Ten Commandments and the New Covenant were not just a set of laws or an agreement. They were the foundations of a new identity, a new way of life, and a new relationship with the divine.